Hey everyone, and welcome. So if you're a coder, a maker, anyone who actually builds things in the digital world, you've probably felt it, right? That weird feeling, that disconnect between the awesome stuff you create and who really owns it and profits from it. Well, today we're going to dig into a project that's trying to fix that head on.
All right, so let's get right into it. This is WORKSPACE404. You can think of it as a research and development hub that's asking a really big question. How did we go from the incredible promise of free and open source software to, to something that feels a lot like techno-feudalism? It's like developers built this amazing digital world, but now a few big players own all the land and are charging everybody else rent. WORKSPACE404 is all about finding a way out of that cycle of extraction and moving toward a new idea they call distributed property.
I mean, it seems like a simple question, doesn't it? But the answer is messy. Especially for those of you who live and breathe open source. You're the ones building the digital roads, the bridges, the libraries, but do you actually own any of it? Or does it feel like someone else can just swoop in, pave over your work, and put up a toll booth?
And that really gets us to the heart of the matter, which is this feeling that the system itself is just broken. For years we've been handed this false choice, told there are only two options. But the problem is, for the builders, both paths lead to pretty much the same dead end.
This slide just lays it out so clearly. On the one side, you've got private property. Think about amazing open source projects like Redis or MongoDB. They got captured by huge corporations that just extracted all the value from the community's hard work. But the other option, public or state-owned property, that comes with its own set of problems, right? Control, surveillance. But look at the bottom line for both. The people building the tech are excluded from real ownership. It's a lose-lose.
And this isn't just some abstract economic theory, This broken system has a very real, very human cost. And that brings us to what you could call the maintainer's dilemma.
WORKSPACE404 actually digs deep into this crisis. They even wrote a book about it called The Misery of Cryptography. It talks about things like code that doesn't pay the bills and the loneliness of the maintainer. We're talking about a real crisis of sustainability and well-being for the very developers our entire digital world is built on.
So get this. 60%. That's the amount of labor in so many of these foundational open source projects that's completely unpaid. The whole system is basically running on passion and goodwill that's being extracted. And what's the result of that? Well, here it is. 44% of open source maintainers report feeling burnt out. The system is literally eating its own. It's just not sustainable. So, what's the alternative?
Okay, so we've seen how the old models are failing the people who do the work. This is where WORKSPACE404 comes in and proposes something totally different, a third way.
And this is really the mantra. It's not about corporate control. It's not about state control. It's about changing the very idea of what ownership means.
So what in the world is distributed property? Well, it's a model where ownership gets broken up into little pieces and shared directly with the people who actually contribute, the coders, the designers, everyone who adds value. And this is so important. It's all enabled by non-speculative tokens. We're not talking about crypto trading here. Think of these tokens more like voting shares in a company. They give you a say in how things are run because you helped build it.
And here's how it actually works. It's a really simple, powerful loop. First, you contribute real value to a project. Second, you get ownership tokens that represent your stake in it. And third, you use those tokens to actually have a voice, to participate in decisions about where the project goes next. You get a say because you have a proven stake.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. The second you hear the word tokens, your brain might immediately jump to all the speculation and crypto hype. So let's be super clear about why this tech is even part of the conversation. Why a blockchain?
The key here is to just totally reframe how you think about it. Forget the price charts for a minute. Think of a blockchain as something much older, much more fundamental. It's a shared, public book of accounts, a ledger of who owns what, that isn't controlled by any single company or government.
See, for this whole distributed ownership idea to work, that ledger needs three specific things that a blockchain just happens to provide. It has to be verifiable, so anyone can see who owns what. It has to be immutable, so nobody can go back and secretly change the records. And it needs to be programmable, so you can build the rules of your community right into the system itself.
This all sounds great in theory, right? But where is this actually happening? Well, that brings us right back to the heart of this whole thing. And that's exactly what WORKSPACE404 is. It's not just a think tank spitting out ideas. It's the real, active hub where this framework is being built, tested, and put into practice as we speak.
Let's just take a quick look at how they're set up. First, they produce the framework. These are the intellectual tools, the books and reports that really define the problem and the solution. Then they actually build projects. real-world applications that put these principles to the test. And finally, they're growing a commons, a shared treasury and a community space for builders to connect and collaborate. It's a whole ecosystem. At the end of the day, this is what it's all about. It's right there in their mission. A platform built by the community for the community. The whole point is to give power back to the individual creators, the coders, the makers, the hardware tinkers, the very people who've been left out of the ownership conversation for way too long.
So, we've covered the problem, we've looked at the proposed solution, and we've seen the place where it's all being built. And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, and honestly, the most important one.
Look, this is not a passive thing. It's not some investment you just throw money at. It's a completely different way of thinking that requires you to actually show up and participate. It's really for the builders and the creators who are just tired of the old ways and are ready to get their hands dirty building something new.
And that's the question that WORKSPACE404 leaves us with. It's a direct invitation, but it's also a challenge. The ideas are there, the tools are there. The only thing missing is the community of builders who are willing to pick them up and start creating a better, more fair digital world. What you do with that invitation? Well, that's up to you.